Krishna, everybody.
Hare Krishna.
Good morning. Oh my gosh. Today we'll be reading from the glorious Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, chapter 29, entitled Talks Between Narada and King Prachinabhati. And today we'll be covering text 62 out. We'll be doing text 62. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayat Nashta Preshwa Bhadrisho Nityam Bhagavate Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtaki. Alright, today's text 62. Mamaite Manasaya Asavaham iti Bruvan Grihniyat Tat Pamanradham Karmayana Panarbhava Mamaite Manasaya Asavaham Bruvan Grihniyat Tat Pamanradham Karmayana Panarbhava Mamaite Manasaya Asavaham Bruvan Grihniyat Tat Pamanradham Karmayena Panarbhava Mamaite Manasaya Asavaham Bruvan Grihniyat Tat Pamanradham Karmayena Panarbhava
Amate Manasaya
Viniyat Tat Pamanradham Karmayena Panarbhava Mamaite Manasaya Asavaham Bruvan Karmayena Panarbhava. You want to go, Debbie? Mamaite Manasaya Savamiti Bhavan Vidyatat Puman Radham Karmayena Punarvara are synonyms. Mama, man, ete, all these. Manasa, by the mind. Yud, yud, whatever. Asao, that. Aham, I am. Iti, thus. Bruvan, accepting. Grihniyati, grihyanat, takes will. That, that. Puman, the living entity. Radham, perfected. Karma, work. Yena, by which. Punaha, again. Bhavaha, material existence. Okay, translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Shapapa Ki Jai. The living entity labors under the bodily conception of I am this, I am that. My duty is this, and therefore I shall do it. These are all mental impressions, and these activities are temporary. Nonetheless, by the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the living entity gets a chance to execute all his mental concoctions. Thus, he gets another body. Please repeat after me. The living entity labors under the bodily conception of I am this, I am that. My duty is this, and therefore I shall do it. These are all mental impressions. And all these activities are temporary. Nonetheless, by the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the living entity gets a chance to execute all his mental concoctions. Thus, he gets another body. Purport. As long as one is absorbed in the bodily conception, his activities are performed on that platform. This is not very difficult to understand. In the world, we see that every nation is trying to supersede every other nation, and that every man is trying to advance beyond his fellow man. All these activities are going on under the name of advancement of civilization. There are many plans for making the body comfortable, and these plans are carried in the subtle body after the destruction of the gross body. It is not a fact that after the gross body is destroyed, the living entity is finished. Although many great philosophers and teachers in this world are under the impression that after the body is finished, everything is finished, this is not a fact. Narada Muni says in this verse that at death, one takes his plans with him, Grihniya, and to execute these plans, he gets another body. This is called Punarbhava. When the gross body is finished, the plans of the living entity are taken by the mind. And by the grace of the Lord, the living entity gets a chance to give these plans shape in the next life. This is known as the law of karma. As long as the mind is absorbed in the laws of karma, a certain type of body must be accepted in the next life. Karma is an aggregate of fruitive activities conducted to make this body comfortable or uncomfortable. We have actually seen that when one man was about to die, he requested his physician to give him a chance to live 4 more years so that he could finish his plans. This means that while dying, he was thinking of his plans. After his body was destroyed, he doubtlessly carried his plans with him by means of the subtle body composed of mind, intelligence, and ego. Thus, he would get another chance by the grace of the Supreme Lord, the Supersoul, who is always within the heart. Sarvasya Chahan Hridi San Nivishto Matasmita Jnanam Apohanancha. In the next birth, one acquires remembrance from the super soul and begins to execute the plans begun in the previous life. This is also explained in Bhagavad Gita in another verse. Ishvara sarvabhutanam hridi deshe arjuna tishtati brahmayan sarvabhutani yantrarudhani mayaya. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjuna, and in directing the wanderings of all living entities are seated as on a machine made of the material energy. Bhagavad Gita 1861. Situated on the vehicle given by the material nature and reminded by the super soul within the heart, the living entity struggles all over the universe to fulfill his plans, thinking, I am a Brahmana, I am a Kshatriya, I am an American, I am an Indian, and so on. All these designations are of the same essence. There's no point in becoming a Brahmana in preference to an American or an American in preference to a Negro. After all, these are all bodily conceptions under modes of material nature. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदाह्मयं ददाति स्वापरान्तिकं हे कृष्ण करुणसिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपिका गोपकान्ता राधाकान्ता नमोऽस्तुते तप्ता कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुतदेवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रे वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितनं भावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, we read today's verse. The living entity labors under the bodily conception. If I am this, I am that. My duty is this, and therefore I shall do it. These are all mental impressions. And all these activities are temporary. Nonetheless, by the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the living entity gets a chance to execute all his mental concoctions. Thus, he gets another body. So, as previous verses have concluded, what we are thinking and the state of our mind is extremely important because this is ultimately going to lead to whether one takes on another body or one doesn't take on another body. So this subtle body carries this same thing on and on from one body to the next body, whether that's a human, an animal, a demon, or demigod. So it's very important that we practice with our subtle body, especially. Our material body is important in one sense, but even more than that, the first two things that we hear that we should do, which leads to the third thing, is Shravanam Kirtanam, which is hearing and chanting. And then hearing and chanting leads to Vishnu Smaranam, remembering the Lord. This has to do with the subtle body. This isn't so much to do with our physical body. We're hearing and we're remembering. So these things at the time of death are going to be the most important things that we carry with us. And towards the end of today's purport, Prabhupada talks about how, right here, in the next birth, one acquires remembrance from the super soul and begins to execute the plans begun in the previous life. This is also explained in Bhagavad Gita. So I recently was reading, I have this book about just different parts of like little segments from Prabhupada's disciples about things they experienced with them or things Prabhupada said. And this one is by Govinda, and it reminded me of this fact. So he states that one of my most persistent memories is a sand crab story. This took place in Hawaii when we were walking on the beach. Prabhupada was talking about sand crabs, those little white crabs that run sideways and hide in their holes as one walks along. Prabhupada spoke for some time about the sand crabs. It finally dawned on me that he was saying that there is no such word in Sanskrit as instinct. Prabhupada asked, why is the sand crab running? Scientists would say the sand crab is running away due to instinct. His instinct is to go back to his hole. But Prabhupada said that there is no such thing as instinct. Instinct is a word that's been coined by the scientists to cover up the fact that there is supersoul, there is God, and there is past experience. He explained this in detail, and it finally dawned on me that I have been taught Darwinism in school all my life. And even though I have been a devotee for 7 years, I was raised to think that the birds and beasts are operating by instinct. Day after day, Prabhupada blasted this philosophy in great detail. Prabhupada said, suppose you know where the privy or bathroom is, and 20 years from now, you return to the same house. Because you were here 20 years ago, you still know where the privy is. Similarly, you have been in the body for many lifetimes. So you know to look for the mother's breast. The baby animal is nudging for the mother's breast. It's past experience, past lifetime, and it's the super soul within the heart that guides the living entity. It's not instinct. There is no such thing as instinct. Instinct makes no sense. What does instinct mean? If you stop to think about it and analyze it, you will see that it means absolutely nothing. Yet the scientists have convinced everyone that the whole of nature is moving by instinct. But the whole of nature is not moving by instinct. It is moving by supersoul. Prabhupada gave another example. You can throw food outside, and within 20 minutes, the birds will be eating it. They all say it's instinct, but it's actually the supersoul guiding them. Oh, there is food. This is the kind of talk that we would get into. So again, Prabhupada's talking about this past remembrance and this past experience carrying on to our next body. So if we're having these desires like an animal or such, then that will carry on to our next body. We'll act and pick up from that. And even, let's say, in the human life, we have so many struggles and so many certain things that we deal with that not others have to really deal with so much. And that's because it's coming from our past lives, our past experiences. So we hear time and time again that we're not this body, and that's like one of the most basic Krishna conscious teachings that you hear when you come. Almost every class focuses on you're not this body, you're not this body. Prabhupada says it time and time again, even in his books. Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita begins by teaching Arjuna that you're not this body. But the question is how many of us truly understand that we're not this body, right? We hear it, but do we actually understand it? So there's intellectually understanding something, and then there's practically understanding something. So, for example, we wouldn't have much interest spiritually or in our spiritual life if there was no practically hold on, my bad. Okay, there's intellectual understanding, which many of us do, otherwise we wouldn't have much interest in spiritual life, but then there's practically understanding something. So most of us intellectually, at least, have some understanding that I'm not this body. And most of us, at least, some practical experience of this. But it gets a lot deeper. And so, just like I may be reading up on how to do something. Let's say, for example, I'm reading up on a recipe on how to do something I've never made. I've never made anything similar to it. I have no experience. So in the recipe, it may say that, you need to watch for this before you end up doing this, and you have to do it at this time. And maybe it also says you need to expect this kind of consistency, this texture, this, that. Okay, I intellectually kind of get what you mean. But when it comes to practically doing it, you have to have some experience with it. So you wouldn't have any practical experience till you do it. And then the next time you make it, now you have the practical experience to it. Now you know what you're doing. Now you know how to carry on with it. So understanding I'm not this body is similar. It takes a little knowledge, it takes a little practice, and it takes a little bit of discrimination as well. So a good practice is that, when we have a desire, maybe an opinion, or a judgment for that matter, we perform an activity, contemplate something, speak about something, whatever it may be, the question arises is, where does it root at? Where is the root of this coming from? Does it connect to actual Krishna consciousness, or does it root down to this bodily conception in some way, shape, or form? Now, this is the very subtle thing, because oftentimes knowing how deep down our bodily conception goes, we have no idea. It gets deeper and deeper the more we go. So, this is just an example. Maybe I'm going to groceries to buy something, and I see something, I'm like, I want to go buy that. Now, a question arises is, am I actually buying that for Krishna's enjoyment, or am I buying that because I want it and I like those things? We hear what Krishna likes. We have so many descriptions of what he likes. But maybe it's something that I like, and maybe, I'll offer it to him. That's pious. That's like karma yoga. I want it, but I'm going to offer it because I know that's what I should do. But is it pure bhakti? Not exactly, because it's not going off of what's going to please Krishna most. We're going off of it pleases me, therefore I'm still going to offer it to Krishna because it'll be pleasing to him. We're still focusing more on me than on him solely. And I do that. I'm not going to lie. That's something I still got to work on myself. But it's just an example. So just like I may feel uncomfortable around someone, or I'm judgmental towards them, then the question can be raised, are they a threat, or are they actually doing anything wrong? How many times do we judge someone and we have opinions? Quite often, or at least at some point we used to. And we may have verbally said it, physically done something, or maybe just internally we feel deep down a certain way about someone. So maybe not. Maybe they haven't done anything. Maybe they haven't said anything. Maybe I'm judging them based on their body. Maybe it's the way they choose to decorate their body, where it's from, what it looks like, maybe their culture, their language, and all that is different than mine. But I'm comfortable with my culture and my people like me because I am more used to it and can understand it better, and may even think that it's better or superior. Oftentimes we see this kind of thing. On the flip side, in a similar way, maybe I'm more apt to try to hang out with and be around people more like me. That's pretty natural. We see that. We got something in common, so we're going to hang out. And so maybe people are from the same country, state, town, culture, language, school, or whatever it may be. Even if we don't actually have much more in common besides these things, maybe I'm just connecting with you on just these superficial things. We went to the same school, we hung out with the same crowd, or, we're from the same culture, we speak the same language, but when it comes down to like our own personality and our own interests, we completely differ. And if we were to actually like go into those type of things, we'd be uninterested in each other. Oftentimes people, they form these relationships based on these different things, and these relationships eventually crumble because they're not built on anything very solid. So these are common to most people, regardless of who you are. This identification and attachments root down to the smallest things that you probably would have never even second guessed. So I'll go with a little bit of a personal experience with this in my own life. So personally, in this lifetime, Krishna, as I've come to see over time, has put me in this body, in this form to teach me these exact type of things. Specifically, I was born mixed race. I'm like about half white, about half Mexican, and a little bit African. So, you got like two different cultures that you're not exactly full one of this or full one of that. But I was raised in Mexican culture. And, as I got older, that identity became more and more a part of who I was. And this became more prominent, leading me to learn a lot of things about my culture, learn things such as my language, taking on different traditions, beliefs, and this went on for probably about a decade and it became like a source of shelter and security for me. It was something I felt secure in because I didn't really feel like I had much other than that, because I had a sense that all these other material things will fade. I could buy a nice house, that's going to fade away. It's not guaranteed. It could be taken away, even a car, girlfriend, whatever it may be. These things could be taken away, but at least this I knew was going to stay with me. I knew that no matter what, nobody could take those type of things away from me, in one sense. So I had my culture, I had my ancestors, I had my community, my own unique things that came with those. And when people treated me as less than, I just remember the resilience of my ancestors and people. So I took real deep, maybe someone tries to say something about me, but it's like, what? Like, my people have been through a lot worse. 90% of my Mexican side were wiped out when colonizers came. And keeping those traditions, they had to face so many things just to get to survive. So I took a lot of shelter in that and embraced it even harder. I embraced my culture even harder because of that. So actually, this attachment, especially to my people's traditions, beliefs, also is what made me stay here, because interestingly enough, a lot of our beliefs and a lot of our culture is very similar to the Vedic traditions and scriptures. So growing up, I had this idea that I would go down to Mexico, I would find I'd find a spiritual teacher down there, and I would relearn what was lost in my own family. But when I came here, I was like, it's all right here, pretty much everything from having multiple demigods, having knowledge of there being multiple demigods and living entities and everything, including the mountains, the sun, the moon, the trees, knowing that there's an ultimate supreme person, that there's reincarnation, even down to having temples and deity worship. So many things were similar. So I was like, I found that without having to go there. So I ended up staying. I knew that they were similar, so I knew it was also going to be a lot easier because the teachings here were clear. Because if I go down there, for example, a lot has been lost. Hundreds to thousands of our sacred scriptures from down there were burned by the Spanish friars, and a lot of people were forced to convert to Catholicism. So even in the tradition, a lot is lost or a lot is mixed. So I knew when I came here, I was having something pure, something that was coming down the line, coming straight from God himself. It's something that's been around even older than my own traditions. So, however, becoming a devotee hasn't been without difficulty of detachment. You know, learning I'm not this body and actually realizing it made a lot of what I did and was planning to do in a material sense useless. Um, I was real focused on my culture and trying to decolonize and all that. And my whole point of going to the U of A for Latin American studies was so that I could teach people the what I saw as the true history. And then when I became a devotee, it was like, well, why would I do that? I'm making them be based on this bodily concept. So I completely destroyed the whole reason I was going to the U of A for that major. And I switched to religious studies instead while I was still going there. So, I ended up shaving my long hair, taking off certain traditional things, and don't even really even have the same cuisine. I practically gave up that community. No one is exactly from the same culture here, even if they're Mexican. No one exactly understands it, nor does anyone speak my language. And every once in a while, I'll be tested if I will take shelter in my culture when certain situations come up. Sometimes part of me wants to take shelter back in that when maybe someone tries to make me feel less than, maybe someone tries to make me feel inferior based on my own culture or my own birth. They're like, oh, you know what, you're from this country or this state or this ethnic group, but you're not like me. And sometimes that makes me want to embrace my culture that much more. Uh, Honestly, despite everything, I'm thankful for it because it has really been teaching me a deeper sense of detachment from this body because it's not easy. And over time, it's become easier and easier and making me realize deeper and deeper things in relation to that and how other people also are going through that same thing. Even if they're not realizing it, they're still focused on this identification, especially when it comes to things like culture, language, and so forth. Um, So, anyways, I tell this story not just for myself, but for everyone listening or present that may have or may be currently experiencing something similar. And it doesn't have to just be about your culture. Maybe it's about your previous belief system, your previous interests, or whatever it may be that now you're learning to detach from, because ultimately it ties you back to identifying with this body. It doesn't have to necessarily be about culture, although for many people it will be because of those things. And we see that. Even with devotees, we see that. Because it's an attachment. We've had this for lifetime after lifetime. I'm from this country. I'm from this birth. Uh, I'm from this religion. I'm from that, and we take great pride in that. And we'll hang out with people based on that. Maybe even prefer certain friendships over other friendship because they're from the same culture or same belief system, so forth. Um, but ultimately, like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says in the Chaitanya Chaitamrita Madhya Lila 1380, he says that I'm not a Brahmana, I'm not Kshatriya, I'm not a Vaishya or Shudra, nor am I a Brahmachari, a householder, a Vanaprastha, or sannyasi. I identify myself only as a servant of the servant of the servant of the lotus feet of Lord Sri Krishna, the maintainer of the gopis. He is like an ocean of nectar, and he is the cause of universal transcendental bliss. He is always existing with brilliance. So that's our position. We're not any of these things that we're trying to identify with. We're going to try to find so many things to identify with. Oh, I'm from this culture. I'm from this gender. I'm from this town, this country. We're going to try to find so many different identifications. So many. I'm from this community. Even in the spiritual sense, we may try to identify with certain things. But we got to go beyond these things. And it's not to say that you can't learn how to use these in service. Maybe there's a person that comes and they're from a certain part of the world and they're still on a bodily conscious platform and they really connect, they feel more connection with people that they feel are from something similar to them, whether that's their belief or their culture, or they speak the same language, which especially the language part. So we could use that in service to preach, but it's knowing that you're not this body. You have to keep that in mind when doing so. It's for the purpose of preaching. That this person feels more connected, and I was gifted this body that may be more able to help this personality. But you know what? Something when we stop identifying with things to this world, we become separate from this world because we know where we come from and we know who we are. Not just who we are, but who all these living entities are. So we realize, you know what? I'm not this body. I'm not anything to do with this body. Just like Mahaprabhu says, I'm none of these things. I'm a servant of the servant of the servant of the Lord. That's our position. That's all these living entities' position. That's my position, your position. That's the tree's position, the grass position, the insects, the birds. All these living entities that we're seeing them for their body. You know, we're saying, oh, you're from this country. Oh, you're from this body. You're an animal, so you're less than me. Blah 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 blah. But when we start seeing on a higher level, and something beautiful really happens. Now I'm no longer seeing nor judging you based on where you're from, your culture, your language, gender, skin color, or any of that. Now I see you as a part and parcel of my beloved Krishna. And you are so dear to him. And we're related. We're just both disguised in these decaying flesh puppets. You know? Well, you're beloved of Krishna, and so am I. And that's beautiful. And we both have a service to him. We both give such great pleasure to him. He's taking care of you. He's taking care of me. He's taking care of all these living entities. So now to the extent that we have this realization, we can have a deeper relationship with everyone and not be so secluded or even uncomfortable. So to the extent that you realize that you're not this body, it's to the extent that you're going to be able to have some really beautiful and unique relationships and connect with everybody. You know, because now I'm no longer secluded to just the people I'm comfortable with because of my bodily identification. Now, you know, I can relate with everyone because I know that we all have the same thing in common. Now it doesn't matter whether you're black, you're white, male, female, this culture, that culture, this language, that language. We all are living entities. We're all part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of God, Krishna. And so now maybe if I have a deeper sense of this, now the person that I thought was scary before isn't so scary. You know, he looks mean, you know, maybe he got a whole bunch of tats and all that. Maybe he dresses a certain way that would generally intimidate me. But now that I have this knowledge, I'm not seeing him based on that bodily platform. I'm seeing within him. So now with that kind of conviction, if I go up and say, how are you or something, likely there's going to be more of a connection there. Maybe the person you thought was scary ends up being the most friendly person you know. He's like, oh, hey, how are you doing? Like, this is that. And maybe that flourishes into a beautiful relationship. You never know who it is that's going to be a certain way. You know, even in terms of religion, for example, you know, or birth, some of our great saints in our own tradition were not born in the normal Hindu caste system type of thing. Haridas Thakur was not born a Hindu. He was born a Mohammedan. And many people criticize him for that. But he wasn't seen on that platform. He wasn't seen that, you know, he was humble and wouldn't approach certain places because he was like, oh, I'm not even worthy. I'm from this birth and I'm not worthy to be in the presence of the Lord and all that. But deep down, he wasn't seeing other people on that platform. He was seeing every living entity as part and parcel of Krishna. And he had a great influence. And so many sages and saints we see on that same platform. Srila Prabhupada, he made the distinction between the Indians and Westerners in one sense, because he knew that in America, or the US, I mean to say, the culture is different. But he wasn't seeing on that platform. He knew that we were all parts and parcels of Krishna. So when he came here, what happened? When he acted on that platform, so many people were attracted. He wasn't only going up to the Indian people and people from that area of the world that were here in the US and being like, okay, you're qualified. Let me tell you about this or tell you about that. He was talking to the hippies, people that have long hair. Maybe they didn't bathe so much. They likely took some form of intoxications. And he gave it to them because he wasn't seeing them for their external appearances. So because of that, they felt something very deep. They felt a love there because he's not judging them based on that. He's seeing them for who they are and is indiscriminately giving them Krishna consciousness, showing them a love that no one else has ever shown them, because the only love that they're being shown is based on the body. Their family, their friends, generally based on the body type of love. All these things based on the body, but he was going above and beyond that. He was showing them a deeper sense of love that no one of them has ever felt before, and they were touched by that. So I urge you to question yourself from time to time: is what I'm doing, thinking, feeling, willing, desiring, speaking, or whatever it may be, of this body, or is it something substantial? Because anything to do with this body is temporary, and ultimately it's going to fade away. So what may hold true now won't hold true forever if it's tied to this body. There's the relative truth and there's the absolute truth. Now, the relative truth, I could say, I'm a male. I was born in Arizona. I come from a Mexican cultural background. I went to this school. I went to that school. And that's true. If I told someone I never did that, or I'm none of those things, most people would be like, "What are you talking about? You literally are, and you literally did." But in the ultimate sense, after I die and I take on another body, those things are no longer true. I'm no longer such and such person who was born at such and such place and did such and such things. So this is a relative truth. It only held true for the time that I was within this body. But the ultimate truth is that I'm a part and parcel of the Lord, and I have a connection with Him. So this is actually something substantial. So when we're having opinions about someone, when we're judging someone, when we're looking at someone, is it based on relative truth? Is it something that's only going to be temporary for a short time being? Or is it something that's actually substantial, something that's actually going to last beyond just as relative truth? Now, obviously, use common sense. It's not that I'm saying that you should not have some discrimination to some extent of, maybe this person, he killed a bunch of people, this, and that, and he's still vicious. So, but you know what? He's part and parcel of the Lord, and so I'm gonna go hang out with him and be best friends with him and bring him to all my family gatherings. Obviously not common sense, but still question these things when we have these different things come up within us, whether it's how we feel, how we think, what we're doing. Where is this being rooted down to? Is it rooted down in our bodily consciousness, to our bodily identification, or does it root down to our bhakti, and our connection to the Lord? So even if we're having bodily consciousness, even if it's small, that will come out in the way what we say, what we do, and how we experience things. If you're not aware of it, you're not going to know that you're doing it. But it's going to show in one way, shape, or form, and how you interact with people, things you do, things you say. that little bit of bodily consciousness will affect everything else. Not that it's going to be a huge thing, because obviously we're still working through these things, but it's still going to have some effect on how we relate with people or what we do. Just like when someone fires a gun and you got a scope with crosshairs, and the crosshairs they go up to a certain amount of yardage, so many yards, so many feet, so many meters away. Um, but if it's off just a little bit, as that distance goes, that how much it's off, your crosshair might be just a little off target, but when you shoot, that bullet's going to go, and as it gets closer to target, it's going to be a farther and farther distance away from the target. So our little bit of bodily consciousness could, if we're not careful, it could lead to more severe effects that will come out in one way, shape, or form. So question yourself. This is something important, because our first teaching in Krishna consciousness is to not identify with this body, and that we're not this body, and that we're part and parcel of the Lord. So, and whatever you do, whatever you say, whatever you speak, think, feel, will, always remember that I'm a part and parcel of the Lord. And this other living entity I'm dealing with is also a part and parcel of the Lord. There are none of those things that I'm seeing them for externally. Anyways, I think we'll end here if there's any questions or comments. Yes, Lalita Priya.
I really liked the little story you shared in the beginning about instinct. That was really great. Where did you get that?
What's it called? It's like Memories of a Living Saint. I can show you.
Memories of what?
It's like, I think it's called like Memories of a Living Saint or something.
Oh, okay, nice. Yeah, and I never thought of it that way. Of course, all the time you would hear about instinct, and I always would kind of live my life really based on, I would I called it listening to my gut, right? My gut would tell me, this is a bad situation. This is, stay away from that. Don't walk down that alleyway, whatever it is, but some people call it instinct, but super soul, right? And one interesting thing you were talking about, babies, they look for the breast, right, to feed. And I remember hearing years ago, somehow they found out that a newborn baby, even if the mother is incapacitated, like say she lost a lot of blood and she was not able to bring the baby to her breast to feed, that a newborn baby is able to wiggle its way all the way from in between the legs all the way up to the breast without any assistance at all. And so, I mean, if that's just instinct, as we say, I mean, that's pretty incredible to me. It makes far more sense to me that it's actually the super soul saying, hey, wiggle this way, wiggle that way, get up there, get some nourishment, So I found that to be really incredible. So I really liked it. So.
Yeah, when I read that, I was pretty amazed by that concept myself. And, we see it play out with even how we carry out things, our own conditioning, and all that. And it's important that we are aware of these things, because they'll carry on. If I want to identify with any of these things in this body, even culture, religion, whatever it may be, I'll likely have to take another birth in that religion, culture, or so forth, or be put in such a situation that I learned to detach from those things.
Yeah.
Chandrika, you had something.
Thank you for a nice class. So I could relate a little bit, because in my family too, we have a lot of different, religions, and I have two half sisters. So we have white, Indian, black in my family, and then my kids also have a lot of mixture from their dad too. So, but just growing up, obviously those times as well, there's a lot more, racism or judgments, you could say. And so it felt kind of awkward, because, some of my family members and I look very different. But then as I got older, and also we had different religions. I mean, we had Christianity, we had Muslim, and no religion, and it's just spiritual, different things. As I got older, I started to, then some of my family members became like Buddhists and Hindus. Everything sort of came together, and I thought, wow, I actually really appreciate it, and I appreciate Krishna's unlimitedness, that he could show us or show me, my family, that we can appreciate, everything, all religions or cultures and all of that, which made me feel like I wanted to understand even more cultures. And coming into Krishna consciousness, I saw all of that within ISKCON, like just people from different backgrounds and different religions coming together. So again, understanding we're not this body, but at the same time understanding Krishna's unlimited energy from that.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something beautiful you see in Christian conscious movement. You see people from all kinds of different backgrounds with all kinds of different stories. So unique, and not the people you meet are, each person is very, very unique. You go in the material world, everyone's trying to be the same as like whatever they're identifying with. I identify as this culture, and I got to make sure, like, I'm from this culture with the way I dress, the way I speak, who I hang out with, so forth. Or maybe it's the religion. I got to make sure I have all the ornaments and all that you can see that. I got to make sure I'm speaking about it in such a way, even if I may not be strictly practicing it. I got to make sure for sure. But in the Christian consciousness movement, we may all dress similar and all that, but our personalities are super unique, that no two devotees are that similar. They may be alike, but they're not the same person. Very unique. All right, anybody else before we end off here? Okay. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.